ॐ दक्षिणास्य समारम्भा शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमा अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्ता स्मर्या गुरुपरम्परा श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। परिज्ञानाश्रम श्रीगुरुशङ्कर परिज्ञानाश्रम शङ्कर सद्गुरु केशव वामन कृष्णपाण्डुरङ्ग आनन्द परिज्ञान गुरु सद्योजात शङ्कर सद्गुरु गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णु गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। From today, with the blessings of our Guru Parampara and also with the special blessings and instructions from Parama Pujya Sadyojat Shankarashram Swamiji, we will be starting to study one of the most beautiful Upanishads in our available major 10 Upanishads called as the Kathopanishad. Our beloved Swamiji is very keen that all of us, the Samaj, is exposed to this beautiful content and this wonderful knowledge that our Upanishads give. And he has given this responsibility to me that I conduct this study together. All of us together will study some of the Upanishads, especially now we'll start with Kathopanishad. Now, before we start the Upanishad as such, let me just give a brief introduction to what is an Upanishad, what is Vedanta. Upanishads are also called as Vedanta. Vedanta means that which comes at the end of Vedanta or Vedas, the end of the Vedas. The Vedas are our scriptures. They are the primary bodies of knowledge that we have got directly from the Lord at the time of the creation of this universe. And it is said that these Vedas are not of any human intellect, not the work of any human intellect, and the Vedas were directly transferred or given by the Lord, by Ishvara, at the time of the creation of this universe. And all the mantras of the Vedas were actually seen or understood by the Drishtaras, mantra Drishtaras, or what are called, who are called as the rishis, the seers. We call them the seers. The seers were able to see or clearly understand or absorb whatever mantras of the Vedas which came in the form of various mantras, they were absorbed by these rishis called as the mantra drishtaras, and by a tradition of oral tradition, by saying it orally, and karna parampara. Karna parampara means through listening. It was actually spread from guru to the shishya with this particular karna parampara. There was no question of writing down at that time. Here, those who heard the rishis, they passed them on, whatever they had heard from the rishis, passed this knowledge on to the next generations of the Shishyas. And thus, the Vedas are nothing but those mantras or those facts or those things which are the primary body of knowledge, which were directly perceived by these rishis and transferred by a Karna Parampara, by an oral tradition of preaching or teaching or giving this knowledge. It was passed on from generations to generations. And now we are lucky that all these are available in the written form and in the print form. Now we must understand that the Vedas, the entire body of knowledge is called as Vedas, but the first part of the Vedas or a large part of the Vedas deals with human pursuits, especially the material pursuits of human beings. Now, each human being, especially among the jivas, we do not know much about the higher jivas, those who are in the Swarga and other higher lokas. But at least among most of the jivas which we are aware of, it is the human jiva which has the faculty of free will. And ultimately, because of this free will, every human jiva wants to attain something, and all the pursuits of the human jiva are for the attainment of happiness, ultimately, for the attainment of Ananda. And because of this, the human pursuits are divided into four, which are called as the Purusharthas. Purusharthas are nothing but the human pursuits and can be divided into four types of human pursuits. The first, dharma, second, artha, third, kama, and last one, moksha. Now it is said that the dharma, artha, kama, purusharthas, or the first three purusharthas, which are going to be called later in the Kathopanishad as prayers, or human pursuits for material happiness. A human being, because he is not aware of where to get this happiness from. See, ultimately, what is the pursuit of a human jiva? To get that happiness. And the human jiva is not aware exactly where to find this happiness. And therefore, the human jiva goes after different kinds of pursuits. Dharma Purushartha, where he tries to do whatever has to be done in the way it has to be done, as suggested by the Vedas, and try to accrue punya, try to accrue merits or punya, so that he can have a good way of life when he's here, and he can attain higher lokas after death, post life. After life, he can attain higher lokas. That is one of the pursuits he feels that he can get ananda from. Then there is Artha Purushartha. Artha Purushartha is nothing but security in the form of money, in the form of property, in the form of family members, people around me. All these things a human being feels that this kind of a security that I get gives me happiness. That's what a human being thinks and goes after these things which he feels are going to give him security. Then there is the Kama Purushartha, desiring for things. He feels that by desiring for things and by getting whatever he desires, he gets happiness. So, this is the usual pursuit of a human jiva. But what our scriptures say is that ultimately, this ananda you're looking for is the material ananda which you can get from this world around you. And this ananda or happiness that you get from these three pursuits of dharma, artha, and kama are only temporary. They're not going to give you lasting ananda, and this Ananda also is interspersed with a lot of dukkha. Sukha is not there continuously. There is so much of presence of, interspersing of lot of dukkha also in between. And what you are looking for, actually, our scriptures say, what you are looking for is not really this kind of a temporary Ananda. You want something where you have this constant, permanent state of ananda or fulfillment. What is the meaning of ananda? Fulfillment, a sense of fulfillment. Right now, what is our state? It is a state of unfulfilled feeling. And we always feel that we are lacking something. We have to make up for that lack, and that unfulfilled feeling has to be filled up, and therefore we go after material ananda in the form of dharma, artha, and kama. But ultimately, what our scriptures say is that that ananda you're looking for, that happiness and purnatvam and completeness that you're looking for, cannot be got by these material pursuits or prayers. Ultimately, this Ananda is within yourself. You are the very source of that Ananda. Only thing is, you have to know how to access that source of Ananda which is within yourself. With this regards, our Vedas are divided into two parts. The first part is what is called as the Veda Purva, or what is called as the Karma Kanda. Now, for a person, for a jiva, for a human jiva, who's not really well prepared to understand what actually this Ananda means, and whose pursuit is limited to dharma, artha, kama, the Vedas also cater to this kind of people also. The Veda Purva deals with or caters to these people who have a value for dharma, artha, and kama purusharthas. At present, these people are not capable of understanding that, see, these dharma, artha, kama purusharthas, or the prayers as we call it, is only temporary. That's not going to give you a lasting happiness. And there is something else called as the moksha purushartha or the shreyas in the language of Kathopanishad, that it is going to ultimately give you what you are looking for. They are not able to understand. Most of us are in that immature state of mind. Most of the jivas, human jivas, are immature, and right now we are only interested in fulfilling our immediate need or immediate desire for that happiness or ananda. And therefore, the Veda Purva says it comes to our rescue and says, does not matter. Right now, you are not prepared for that to find out that Ananda which is actually in yourself. Doesn't matter. Right now, dharmically, you can pursue whatever dharma, artha, kama, purusharthas or prayers that you are pursuing. I will help you. I will tell you how to go about this dharma purushartha, artha purushartha, kama purushartha in a proper way by doing certain things, by doing certain karmas, by doing certain upasanas, by following certain ways of life, by avoiding doing certain things. This Veda Purva, which is called as Karma Kanda, guides an ignorant person in the field of, in the realm of karma and upasana, and helps this person to pursue his material pursuits in the form of dharma, artha, kama. And ultimately, Veda Purva has the intention that over a period of time, after having gone through enough of this dharma, artha, and kama purusharthas, hopefully one day this particular jiva will realize that these three pursuits are not giving me lasting happiness. They're only keeping me bound to karma. They're only keeping me bound to coming back again and again and again into this life, because what I want is to gather only punya or gather material benefits which are going to give me happiness, and that is going to keep me bound in samsara. That ultimately this person, this human being will understand that is the intention of Veda Purva, after which there will be a search for that happiness or that ananda, which is a permanent source of ananda. And at that time, the next part of the Vedas called as Vedanta or Veda Shiraha. Vedanta does not mean, because okay, Vedanta comes after Karma Kanda. Vedanta is also called as Jnana Kanda. And here, what Vedanta does is that, fine, all these lives you have gone after the material pursuits of Dharma, Artha, Kama, but Dharma, Artha, Kama are only going to keep you continuously in ignorance, continuously in samsara. And ultimately, the way out is to find out that you are that very source of Ananda which you are looking for. And how to find that very source of Ananda within myself. That is the subject matter of Vedanta. And Vedanta means what? At the end of the Vedas, that is the terminal portions of the Vedas, it is the jnanam or the knowledge about this Atma, Atma Jnanam or Brahma Jnanam, which we have already talked about in Vivek Chudamani and also in Bhagavad Gita. And in Jnana Kanda, the stress is more on knowing, not on doing. In Karma Kanda, the stress is doing kaya, vacha, manasa, doing the karma, avoiding certain things, and doing things according to a certain order so that one gets whatever one wants as per the promise of the Veda Purva or Karma Kanda. But ultimately, what our scriptures say is that one has to progress, one has to transit to the Jnana Kanda. And Jnana Kanda is also called as the Upanishads. So the second part of the Vedas, which come at the end of the Vedas. So there are Mantra, Brahmana, and Aranyakas. These are the three portions of the Vedas. And at the Aranyaka portion, at the end of the Vedas, we have this body of knowledge called as the Upanishads, and this is called as also Vedanta, also called as Veda Shiraha, or the head or the important aspect of the Vedas. Karma Kanda actually is a much larger portion than the Jnana Kanda, because the Karma Kanda deals with thousands and thousands of karmas and upasanas which can be done for anything you want. There is a way which the karma kanda is going to tell you. There is a method for whatever you want to achieve. There is a way of attaining it, achieving it through the Veda Purva or karma kanda. But what is Jnana Kanda? Jnana Kanda or Vedanta or Upanishads, these are all the names given to this portion of the Vedas which talk about the very Swarupa Ananda, or the very Swarupam of the individual, as to why is it that I am unhappy? What is this bondage? We saw those questions. Ko nama bandhaha. In Viveka Chudamani, we saw that. What is this bandha? Why am I feeling all the time bound? And why am I feeling a samsari all the time? What is this bandha? What is this bondage that I am perceiving now? Is it really a bondage, or is it something else? Have I mistaken this for something else? What is this bondage that I am feeling? From where it has come? How is it constantly progressing and making me come back again and again? Why is it that I am pursuing all the time, going after and pursuing material benefits? And I find that that happiness which I am looking for, I am not getting with any of the material pursuits that I am going through. So, what is the reason for that? And if there is this Ananda, this completeness, this Purnatvam, which is my own nature, which is found within me, I don't have to look for this Ananda anywhere outside, but that is by very nature. If this is what I have to know, how to know that? What is the means of knowing that? What is the pramana? How should I know that I am that very source of happiness? How to understand my nature? Who am I? What am I? This is what is the subject matter of the Upanishads. And the subject matter of the Upanishads, if we have to talk about in one verse, we can say all the Upanishads talk about what? Brahma Satyam, Jagan Mithya, Jivo Brahmaiva Naparaha. We saw that in Viveka Chudamani also. Actually, for the Upanishads, Viveka Chudamani is a very good primer. We saw in the Bhagavad Gita initially certain terms and certain ideas of Vedanta, which were very beautifully summarized by Lord Krishna. In Viveka Chudamani, we saw it was like a primer, or it was like something which gave us all the concepts that are discussed in any Vedantic text or in any Upanishad. So now, when we go to the Upanishads, which is nothing but the Jnana Kanda of the Vedas, if it is one portion, the terminal portion of the Vedas, if every Veda has got these Upanishads at the end of it, then it is said that we have four Vedas: the Rig Veda, Yajurveda, Samaveda, and Atharvana Veda. So at the end of the Aranyakas of almost every Veda, there are these Upanishads. Upanishads are again small portions of the Aranyaka part of the Upanishads, of the Vedas, where this idea or this knowledge about the self is given. What is Ishvara? What is Brahman? What is my nature? Who am I? Is there any difference between Jiva and Jiva? Is there any difference between Jiva and Jagat? Is there any difference between Jiva and Ishvara? What is the nature of Jiva? What is the nature of Jagat? What is the nature of Ishvara? What is this source of happiness that I'm looking for? What is this Brahman? This whole thing is discussed in the Upanishads. it is known that there are about 1108 Upanishads. At the end of the four Vedas, different, that small Upanishads, big Upanishads, Laghu Upanishads, and really very, very big Upanishads. And there are some very small, just a few verses. We have like that varieties of these Upanishads, which are given certain names depending upon where they occur in the Vedas. But out of those 1108 Upanishads, the Prachalita ones, those which are known, are 108. And then, since all the 108 Upanishads are talking about the same topic of Brahma Satyam, what is there, the reality of everything is this Atma or Brahman, which we have already seen in Vivek Chudamani. And Jagat, if I when I see the Jagat, when I transact with the Jagat, whatever the Jagat is a mere experiential reality. It is not the absolute reality. And Jivo Brahmaiva Naparaha. Brahma Satyam, there is only one absolute truth, that is that Brahman. Jagan Mithya, this multiple, multifarious universe that I am seeing around me, transacting with which it is nothing but a mere experiential reality. It is just an appearance and it is not the ultimate reality. And the Jiva, the I that I think I am, is not different from that Brahman, which is the very support or adhisthana of the entire universe. And therefore, this is the subject matter of all the Upanishads. And most of the Upanishads deal with the Tvam Padartha first, that is who you are, what is your real nature, what is it? Are you the body, mind, sense complex? Or are you that consciousness which is the very content of this body, mind, sense complex, which we have already seen in Vivek Chudamani in the form of Atma and Atma Viveka. Then the Upanishads talk about Brahman or Ishvara in the form of the Tat Padartha. And at the end, the Upanishads always talk about the identity or the indivisibility of Jiva and Ishvara, or Atma, Brahma, Abhedam. Aikyam or Abhedam is talked about. This is the common thing that is followed. This is the common teaching that is followed in all the Upanishads. But then the Upanishads have, each Upanishad has its own way of explaining the same thing in its own words in different ways. Each Upanishad follows what is called as a different prakriya. Prakriya means what? A teaching module. Every Upanishad has its own way of expressing. Like we have seen already in Vivek Chudamani also, we have seen Atma Anatma Viveka may be one of the prakriyas used. It may be Drik Drishya Viveka. We'll discuss all these things when we come to the Upanishad. Drik Drishya Viveka, that may be one of the prakriyas or modules of teaching of the Upanishad. It may be Karana Karya Prakriya, cause and effect, the way it is discussed. Karana Karya Prakriya, it may be Avasthatraya Prakriya, Jagrit Swapna Sushupti Avastha, taking these. So, in this way, the Tvam Padartha is talked about, and taking the Srishti, the Tat Padartha or Brahman is talked about, and then the identity between Jiva and Ishvara or Atma and Brahman is talked about. This is the common subject matter which is talked about by all the Upanishads. But every Upanishad has its own way of conveying the same truth. So if you ask, out of these 108 Upanishads, what is the teaching in Upanishad number 1 or Upanishad number 27 or whatever it is, the teaching is the same. But the thing is, the way it is put, the way it is conveyed may be different in different Upanishads. Out of these 108 Upanishads also, Bhagwan Shankaracharya wrote commentaries on 10 major Upanishads. Therefore, for our study, 10 major Upanishads are good enough. In that also, even the study of 5 Upanishads is considered to be good enough. And these Upanishads are Ishavasya Upanishad, Kenopanishad, Kathopanishad, Mundakopanishad, Prashnopanishad, Mandukya Upanishad, Aitareya Upanishad, Chandogya Upanishad, and Brahadaranyaka Upanishad and Mandukya Upanishad. All these 10 Upanishads are the Upanishads on which Shankaracharya has written commentaries. And because of the commentaries written by Acharya Shankara on these 10 Upanishads, it is easy for us to understand what the Upanishad is saying. The Upanishads are very, very cryptic. The way the Upanishads talk about this is quite cryptic, and it is necessary for us to really have a guru who can unfold the meaning of the Upanishads. And therefore, Acharya Shankara's commentaries or bhashyas are the windows for us to know what exactly the Upanishad is talking about. It is said that when one goes to Kanda, one goes to this Upanishad study, one should not independently do the study at all because, as I said, the Upanishads are extremely cryptic in the way they express a particular shloka, whatever, or a particular mantra. See, in Upanishads, we don't call it shloka, we call it mantra. In Viveka Chudamani, we called it the shloka. In Bhagavad Gita, we called the verses as shlokas. But in Upanishads, we call them the mantras because they are the Shruti. They have come as mantras of the various Upanishads. All the mantras came together, and it is Bhagwan Vyasa. Recently, just last month we had this Vyasa Puja, Chaturmasa Vrita, Vyasa Puja. Now we can understand that it is Bhagwan Vyasa who kind of, brought all these mantras together, divided them into different Vedas, the four Vedas, and made it easy for people to understand where which mantra comes. Therefore, we can say that there are Upanishads at the end of every Veda. Therefore, of these 10 Upanishads, we are not going to bother much about the others. There are some Laghu Upanishads and other Upanishads, but then right now we are going to study only one Upanishad. Later on, we'll see if it is in us, if we are lucky enough to talk about the other Upanishads. Let's see. But right now we are going to discuss only one particular Upanishad. Now, we have to understand that Upanishad, what is an Upanishad? As I told you, Upanishad is a body of knowledge which talks about the real nature of the individual and the nature or the Swarupam of God or Ishvara and talks about the oneness of Jiva and Ishvara. This is the common content. And at the end of every Veda, we have a number of Upanishads coming. And Upanishads are always in the form of a dialogue. The Upanishads are in the form of a dialogue between a teacher and a shishya, between an acharya and a shishya. There are Upanishads where there is one acharya and one shishya, like Mundakopanishad or Kathopanishad. There is one acharya and one shishya. Now, there are Upanishads where there are multiple acharyas, multiple shishyas, as in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, Chandogya Upanishad. There are multiple shishyas, multiple acharyas. There may be one acharya, there may be multiple shishyas. There may be 5 or 6 shishyas and one acharya, like in Prashna Upanishad. We find that there are 6 shishyas and there is one acharya. Then it is possible that, these are the combinations that we have: one guru and one shishya, one guru and many shishyas, many gurus and many shishyas. These are the combinations where the dialogues happen. All the Upanishads are in the form of a dialogue. But then, in some Upanishads, like in Mandukya Upanishad, we may not find a specific Guru and Shishya mentioned, where this Guru is talking about this to this particular Shishya, it may not be talked about. But many of the Upanishads, they bring together the Guru and the Shishya, and we know the name of the Guru also, we know the names of the Shishyas also in that. But sometimes there may not be any name, but then the way the teaching goes on, we can understand that it is nothing but a dialogue between a guru and shishya. And in those days, in the Vedic days, when the Upanishads were first given out from a teacher to the student, they used to be, the teaching would take place in the ashramas of the gurus. It was said that Upanishadic teaching should not be given unless it is asked for. And a guru should not give this teaching of the Upanishad unless the Shishya is prepared for it. And therefore, Upanishadic teaching was considered to be a rahasya in those days. It was not available for everybody. That is why it was called as Rajaguhyam, Rajavidya, Rajaguhya. Bhagwan Krishna calls that ninth chapter. It is nothing but the Upanishadic teachings only. It was considered to be a secret knowledge, to be given only to Shishyas who deserved it, who asked for it. But then, of late, in the last, say, few years, Upanishads have become very, very openly available to all of us, because unless one is interested in the Upanishad, it will still remain a secret. How many people are interested in understanding or knowing what the Upanishad is? More people are interested in the Karma Kanda or Veda Purva, because the Veda Purva deals with the Dharma, Artha, Kama Purusharthas, whereas the Upanishads deal with Moksha Purushartha. How many people are interested in Moksha Purushartha in the first place? And how many people are interested in knowing what the Upanishads are talking about? Therefore, many of our gurus, many of our acharyas felt that these Upanishads should be available to the general public. At least those who are interested in knowing about them, learning about them, should have a chance to know. Anyway, it is going to remain a secret, because unless it is studied properly, unless the Upanishad is studied with commitment, unless enough time is given to the Upanishads and consistently a person listens to the Upanishads, it is not possible to understand what the Upanishad says. And therefore, we are embarking upon the study of an Upanishad which requires a lot of commitment from our side, and we need to spend time on it. We have to be consistent and regular in listening to it, and we have to do a lot of mananam and nididhyasanam. And our Swamiji is very confident that we have to be exposed to this knowledge, and then there will be people interested in spending their commitment and time and trying to know what the Upanishads are trying to say. So, this is merely an effort on our part to see that this Upanishadic knowledge is available to people who are interested in knowing what is said. So, as I said, the Upanishads are a dialogue between a guru and Shishya. Different gurus, different Shishyas are there. And then, because they belong to a particular Veda, each Upanishad belongs to a particular Veda. The Upanishads were taught in situations earlier, like in the ashrams, on the banks of a river, or under the trees in a forest, or at the foot of a hill. So always this teaching would be associated with lot of vignas. There were lot of obstacles possible for this particular teaching, and therefore what used to happen was the guru and the shishyas, whenever they started the study of an Upanishad, always prayed together for absence of any obstacles. They prayed to the Lord so that there would be no obstacles either for the guru or for the shishya. It was not like today at that time, where we have recorded talks, we have recorded teachings in written form and in the audio form, in the video form, where one can listen to these things. Those days, the student had to depend upon his physical health, mental health, and he had to concentrate. He had to have a very tikshna buddhi, where he had to sit and listen to the teacher. The teacher also had to have the capacity to convey whatever he had to convey. And it was something which was such a fluid thing that both the guru and the shishyas could be any time afflicted by any of the obstacles. There could be buddhi doshas, vag doshas on the part of the teacher. There could be buddhi doshas on the part of the student also in understanding what is being said. At the same time, there could be situations in the outside world which were not conducive, like rains, or storms, or whatever it is, or wild animals, whatever. There could be situations which are not conducive for the teaching, and therefore every Upanishad, which is a dialogue between a guru and a shishya, would always start actually with what is called as a prayer or Shantipata. And we have to understand that every Veda has got its own Shantipata for its Upanishads. Therefore, we can actually identify the Upanishad belongs to a particular Veda based on the Shantipata that the Upanishad has got. So it is said that the Vedas, as we have, there are Rigveda Upanishads, there are Yajurveda Upanishads, there are Samaveda Upanishads, there are Atharvana Veda Upanishads. And we have to understand that in Yajurveda, there are two recessions. Recessions mean there are two branches. Yajurveda is divided into Krishna Yajurveda and Shukla Yajurveda. So there are the two main branches of the Yajurveda. And when Yajurveda has Upanishads, there are Krishna Yajurveda Upanishads also, Shukla Yajurveda Upanishads also. So the Shanti Patas of all the Upanishads belong to whichever Veda they come under. So we can say that, Aitareya Upanishad is one Upanishad which belongs to Rig Veda. So they have a different Shantipata. There is a Saraswati Upanishad also. So some of them belong to the Rigveda Upanishads are there, which have their own Shantipata, which is Vangme Manasi Pratishtita, Manome Vachi Pratishtitam. Iti, there is a Shantipata for that. Then when you come to Yajurveda, here the Krishna Yajurveda has got the Shantipata of Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu. And the two examples of Krishna Yajurveda Upanishads is one Kathopanishad, which we are going to study, and Taittiriya Upanishad. The Kathopanishad belongs to the Kathaka Shakha of Krishna Yajurveda. Therefore, Kathopanishad is also called as Kathakopanishad, Kathopanishad or Kathakopanishad. And in the Taittiriya Shakha, we have the Taittiriya Upanishad. So, Krishna Yajurveda has these two important Upanishads which people take up for the study, which is one of the two of the 10 important Upanishads. And here, this is Sahana Vavatu is the Shantipata for the Krishna Yajurveda. And we have Shukla Yajurveda Upanishads, which is Ishavasya Upanishad and Brahadaranyaka Upanishad. And for that, the Shantipata is Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate. That is the Shantipata for the Shukla Yajurveda. Then Samaveda is there. Samaveda Upanishads, Chandogya Upanishad and Kena Upanishad are the Chandogya Upanishad and Kena are the Upanishads belonging to the Samaveda. And Apyayantu mamangani vak prana chakshu shrotra mato balam indriyani cha sarvani. That is the Shantipata for the Samaveda Upanishads. Then finally the Atharvana Veda Upanishads. Mundaka Upanishad, Mandukya Upanishad, Prashnopanishad. These three are the examples for Atharvana Veda Upanishad. We are taking the examples from only the 10 Upanishads that are very much in vogue and in practice now. Okay, for this, for Atharvana Veda Upanishad, Bhadram Karne Vishrunuyama Devaha. That is the Shantipatha for the Atharvana Upanishad. So this is the general thing which we have to know about what an Upanishad is, what is the content of the teaching of the Upanishad, where the Upanishads are coming, and which Vedas have got Upanishads where, and what is this kind of an active dynamic teaching between the student and the teacher, what is a Shanti Patha, and what are the Shanti Pathas of the various Upanishads. This is the general knowledge about the Upanishads that we should know. But all the Upanishads are ultimately talking about the same thing as to the what is the very Swarupam of Jiva, Swarupam of Ishvara, and Jiva Ishvara Aikyam is talked about. But it's talked about in a way, in various ways, in various points, taking various points. The way each Upanishad expresses itself is different from the other Upanishad. Therefore, for Abhyasa, for understanding this properly, study of the different Upanishads is very important. One Upanishad gives one particular explanation, one way of explaining the same truth. Another Upanishad has its own way of explaining the same truth. Therefore, it is said that the study of these 10 major Upanishads is very, very important for a person who's a mumukshu, who's a student of Vedanta. If not 10, at least 5 major Upanishads have to be studied by, a person who is desirous of moksha. So Upanishads is one of the Prasthanatrayas. Bhagavad Gita, Upanishads and Brahma Sutra. Prasthanatraya means what? Prasthanatraya means three important parts of Brahma Vidya. Three important things which talk about this Atma Vidya or Brahma Vidya. Three parts, Prasthana. Three important aspects of the teachings of our Vedas are in the form of Bhagavad Gita, which is called as Smriti Prasthana, Upanishads, which are called as Shruti Prasthana, and Brahma Sutras, which are called as the Nyaya Prasthanas. So the Upanishads is a very important part of Prasthanatraya. With this basic background of what Upanishads are, let's come to our Upanishad which we are going to deal with. We are going to talk about or study together Kathopanishad. Kathopanishad is one of the interesting and easier Upanishads out of the 10 Upanishads on which Bhagwan Shankaracharya has written the bhashyas and commentaries. Kathopanishad starts with a story, and it has got a story which goes on in and through the entire Upanishad. But the story is only to introduce the student who is nothing but not short of a, he's just an 8 or 9 year old boy called as Nachiketa. Nachiketa is the 8 year old boy who is the Shishya here. And who is the teacher? The teacher is Yamadharmaraya, or the deity of death, or the Deva of death, god of death, is the one who's going to talk about the nature of the Jiva and Jagat and Ishvara to an 8 year old boy called as Nachiketa. So it is a dialogue. Kathopanishad is a dialogue between an 8 year old, very, very well prepared intellect, Nachiketa, and Yamadharmaraya. This shows that in our Upanishads, we have other Upanishads also where very, very young children, children of young age, like 8 or 9 years old, or young people are the students. So it shows that what you require is not the age, but the jnana vriddha man should be. That is, a person should be capable of absorbing this knowledge. It is not the age that matters. A person may be 80 and still may not be capable of absorbing whatever is told. But a Shishya may be hardly 14 or 15-year-old, or in this case, a 9 year old boy, but he may be capable of absorbing whatever has been told. Therefore, in Kathopanishad, as I told you, this Upanishad belongs to the Krishna Yajurveda, to the Kathaka Shaka, and in this Upanishad, the Acharya is Bhagwan Yamadharma Raja, and then the Shishya is an 8 or 9 year old boy, Nachiketa. And where does this teaching happen? This teaching happens in actually Yama's house when Nachiketa goes. Let us see that story when we come to the Upanishad. Why is it and how is it that this boy Nachiketa reaches Yama's residence, and where the teaching takes place, how it takes place, that we'll see as we start the Upanishad. So this is the dialogue between Yamadharmaraya and Nachiketa. And since this Upanishad belongs to the Krishna Yajurveda, the Shantipata is Sahana Vavatu, Sahana Bhunaktu, which we have already chanted when we started. But then, from the point of view of the Upanishad, what is the meaning of this Shantipata? That is what I'll have to explain here. So let me chant this. How it is chanted in a proper swara, I will chant it, and then I'll tell you the meaning of what the Shantipata actually means and why the Shantipata is chanted. That also will say. So, Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So the Shantipatas belonging to a particular Veda are always chanted with a particular swara. And why the Shantipatas were chanted earlier, I have already told you. that there was a very, very fluid situation when the teaching used to go on between the Acharya and the Shishyas, one Shishya or many Shishyas, whatever. And at that time, to ask for protection from any kind of obstacles, either internal obstacles for the Shishya or the Guru, or obstacles from the surroundings or surrounding places, or obstacles which are not under our control. So, to ask for any kind of a protection from these obstacles, it was always a Shantipata which was started before any teaching of the Upanishad took place. And the Shantipatas, as I told you, are specific to a particular Upanishad belonging to a particular Veda. Now, for Kathopanishad, being a Krishna Yajurveda Upanishad, the Shantipata is Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu. Now, the Shantipata is always chanted together by the Guru and the Shishya because both of them want protection from obstacles of any sort. So, what is the meaning of Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu? What is it? Now let us say Sahana Vavatu means Saha now Avatu. Saha means let that Lord, may Ishvara or Saha, may that Lord protect us together now. Now here it's not English now. Now means me and the teacher. The teacher says now for me and the teacher. Every student says now. Now means what? Me, the student and the teacher. May both of us be protected. Saha now avatu. So Sahana Vavatu, the Sandhi rule comes there, and we have Sahana Vavatu. May you and me, the student and the teacher, the Shishya and the Acharya, be protected. Together, both of us may be protected. Saha now Avatu. Saha now Bhunaktu. Again, Bhunaktu and Avatu means the same. May we be protected again. Then what is the need for the Shantipata to say it twice immediately? Sahana Vavatu, Sahanau Bhunaktu. Please protect both of us. Please protect both of us. Now, why both times, two times, Avatu and Bhunaktu should be talked about? Bhagwan Shankaracharya says that this particular Shantipata or prayer is happening just before teaching and learning is happening. A body of knowledge is going to be exchanged between the teacher and the Shishya. Therefore, Saha now Avatu means may that Lord protect us by granting this knowledge. Let this knowledge be granted to us without any obstacles. Jnanena avatu. Saha now jnanena avatu. It is not given jnanena. Saha now avatu means let this Lord protect us by giving us this knowledge. Let this knowledge be passed on between us and may we be protected for that passing of that knowledge between the two of us. That is from the Acharya to the Shishya. Sahanau bhunaktu. May that Lord give the phalam of this knowledge, protect us with the phalam of this knowledge. So let Sahanau avatu, Sahanau bhunaktu means may the Lord protect us both. How? May the Lord protect us with this knowledge, and may the Lord protect us by giving us or granting us the phalam of this knowledge also. Just getting this knowledge is not enough. I should have the phalam of this knowledge. Whatever it is meant to give me, I should have the phalam of this knowledge. So Sahanau bhunaktu, Saha Viryam Karavavahai. So here, just Ishvara's grace and protection is not sufficient. I have the free will to make an effort, to be committed to the teaching. The Guru has to be committed to the teaching. The Shishya has to be committed to listening. The Shishya has to give his time, his energy, and he has to have the capacity to stay with the teaching. The teacher has to have the physical and the emotional and the intellectual strength to pass on whatever knowledge he has to the student also. So, Sahaviryam Karavavahai. Let us both make the effort. Let the Guru make his best effort in giving whatever he has to give. Let me, the student or the Shishya, make my best effort in the form of commitment, in the form of giving my time and consistency to learning this knowledge. Saha Viryam Karavavahe. Because Viryam Karava means we have got a free will. Ishvara's grace is there, but let me utilize my free will also. Viryam Karava, let us make an effort. Let the student and the teacher both make an effort to make this knowledge available and useful, and let the purpose of this sharing of this knowledge be complete. Sahaviryam karavavahe. Tejasvinav adhitamastu. Whatever we study, let it remain bright, let it not be forgotten. Tejasvi, bright. Tejasvi now, adhitam astu. Adhitam, tejasvi now, tejasvi astu. That means whatever we have studied, whatever I, the student, has given, whatever teaching the teacher has given, let this knowledge remain absolutely clear in the memory of both the teacher and the shishya, because the teacher also should have the memory and the capacity to give out whatever has to be given out. At the same time, whatever is received by me, the student, also the received by me, the shishya, also has to remain bright by dharana shakti and medha shakti. Dharana shakti, by capable of grasping, let me have the capacity to grasp what is given, let me have the capacity to retain whatever I have learned. This is what called as Tejasvinau Adhitamastu. Let me have the Grahana Dharana Shakti. Let me have the Medha Shakti, the intellectual strength for Grahanam, for absorbing, and Dharanam, for retaining whatever has to be retained. Tejasvinau Adhitamastu. Let both of us, even the teacher has to retain whatever he has to teach. He cannot forget. So the teacher and the shishyas are both praying that whatever is studied here, whatever knowledge is shared, let that remain bright in the form of a good grahana shakti and dharana shakti. Tejasvinav aditamastu. Ma vidvishavahai. Let there not be any conflicts between us. Between us means what? Between the shishya and the teacher. Let there be no conflicts. Let there be no loss of trust or faith. Because Guru is the pramanam. Guru is using the Shastra Pramanam, using the words of the Shastra to reveal what the Upanishad is telling. So, Ma Vidvishavahe, let there be no misunderstanding of any type. Let the knowledge flow freely between the teacher and the Shishya. So, Ma Vidvishavahe, most important, let there not be any kind of controversies and conflicts. Let there be no conflicts. Ma Vidvishavahe. Let there not be any conflicts between the Guru and Shishya. Let there not be any contradictions. Let it be a free and smooth flow of knowledge from the Acharya to the Shishya. Mahavidvishav hai. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Three times, let there be peace, let there be peace, let there be peace. Three times it is asked for. Praying for peace, praying for no obstacles. Peace from three types of obstacles is asked for. That is why three times we are chanting Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. What are the three types of obstacles one can have in any pursuit? Forget about knowledge only. In any kind of a pursuit, what are the three obstacles one can have? One is called as Adi Daivika obstacles, Vignas. Adi Daivika Vignas. That means what? Those obstacles which are not under my control. The teaching is going on, there is a heavy rain or a storm, or there may be, a kind of, the rivers may be full, there may be a forest fire, or the ashram may be affected by something, whatever it is, adi daivika. That means that which is an obstacle on a mass scale, which is not under my control at all. It is actually purely an adi daivika. It is, under the control of the functionaries or the gods. So adi daivika vignas, let them not be there. Let there be peace from the side of adi Daivika Vijnas. Then next Shanti, Adi Bhautika Vijnas. Adi Bhautika means what? From my immediate surroundings. There can be immediate surroundings, there can be certain Vignas, there may be certain obstacles over which I have a partial control. I can do something. Now, simple example, I'm sitting in my house and studying Vedanta. There is a big TV is blaring outside, and I'm not able to concentrate. Partially, it is under my control. I can request the family member sitting outside that can you please lower the volume? I'm studying. I can do that, but whether it will happen or not, I don't know. But things are partially under my control. If it is raining outside, I can come and sit inside. So those vignas, those obstacles which are partly under my control, partly not under my control, but which are coming from my immediate surroundings, they're called as Adi Bhautika Vignas. So let there be peace from this Adi Bhautika Vignas also. Then the last one is Adhyatmika Vignas. That is all the obstacles or vignas which are within me. I may not be feeling well physically. At that particular day, I may not be able to be attentive in the class. They are adhyatmika, they are within me. The surroundings are fine, and there are no adidhaivika vijnas. But the most important are the adhyatmika vijnas. That I am somehow not in a mood to study. I am not understanding what the teacher is saying. My mind is wandering here and there. I'm not feeling well, whatever it may be. So there are vignas which are arising in me. They're called as the Adhyatmika Vignas. So here in the Shantipata, all the Shantipatas end with Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. He means let there be no obstacles or vignas either from the Adi Bhautika level or Adi Daivika level or Adhyatmika level. Let this study of the Shastra go on smoothly without any kind of obstacles at all these levels for the Shishya also, for the Guru also. Let the Guru also have no Adhyatmika obstacles, no Adibhautika obstacles, no Adidaivika obstacles. Let the Shishya also be free from all these obstacles. Therefore, let there be an undisturbed transfer of knowledge. Because in the earlier days, it was not like this where today we are sitting for 1 hour and exactly we look at the time and finish in 1 hour and continue later. It was not like that. Whenever the Guru had time, he would sit. Probably the teaching would go on for hours together. Sometimes for days together, the teaching would not go on. So there were lot of permutations, combinations that used to happen in teaching. It might have not happened the way it is happening now, and therefore there were a lot of obstacles that both the Shishya and the Guru had to face, and to have have relief from any kind of these obstacles, the Shanti Patas were chanted before the starting of the teaching by both the Guru and the Shishyas together. So, with this now, from the next session, we'll start the Kathopanishad, which is a Krishna Yajurveda Upanishad, which has the same content, but the way it is taught is in a very interesting way it is taught. The terms that are used and the words that are used may not be used in the other Upanishads. And here, Yamadharmaraja, the god of death, is the Acharya or the teacher. And an 8-year-old Mumukshu called as Nachiketa is the one who is the Shishya. And this is a very beautiful dialogue between the two. And this Kathopanishad has got about 120 verses. It has two adhyayas, two main chapters. Each chapter is divided into 3 sections called as vallis. So, 2 adhyayas and 6 vallis are there, and totally about 120 verses are there, which we are going to take up for our study from the next session. ॐ नन्दन्तु साधका सर्वे विनश्यन्तु विदूषकाः अवस्थाशाम्भवी मेस्तु प्रसन्नोऽस्तु गुरुः सदा सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखमाप्नुयात् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्ति